Good morning, guys. My name is Jillian Major, and I am the Middler teacher at First Congregational Church in Muskegon, Michigan. So our Middler classroom is geared for grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and we are working on the Progressive Christianity curriculum, which our church does, we have purchased, but we do not own the copyrights to it. So last week we did lesson 1 in unit 5, which is called Search for Understanding, and today we're actually going to do lesson 3, which is called The Parables of Jesus. So as we talk about our search for understanding, we're focusing on asking questions in the Bible as a source of understanding. So today we will talk about parables or stories that teach us wisdom. A parable is a short story that compares a spiritual idea or truth to something that is a common experience for people. So Jesus used a lot of parables to teach spiritual ideas. So our first parable that we'll talk about is called the Parable of the Lost Coin, which is found in the book of Luke. Says, or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? When she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost. Just so, I tell you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. So when it talks about the one sinner who repents, it means one person who didn't understand the truth and now realizes what will bring true happiness, which is acting with love and kindness. So just like we feel good when we see somebody acting with sincere kindness, angels also rejoice in seeing more love in the world. So the coins in that parable actually represent people. And Jesus used this story to tell us that every person is important, and every person who is found or chooses to live in love is joyfully celebrated. No one is ever truly lost, but can choose to stay apart from God's love. So our next parable is called the Parable of the Lamp. It says, You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. So, think of somebody who lets their light shine with other people, or to help show God's light to other people. So this might be somebody who is kind and helpful, tries to always do their best, smiling at strangers or using their talents in a positive way. I'd like you to take a second and maybe make them a card, write them a letter, or even just send them a text just to thank them for being a light in this world. So next I'm actually going to read you the story for this lesson, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. So the story is called A Sunflower Garden. Lonnie's class visited a sunflower farm during a school field trip last year. They saw sunflowers taller than her teacher and as big and round as a dinner plate. They walked through fields of yellow, orange, and red sunflowers and ate sunflower seeds at snack time. Ever since that field trip, Lonnie had been planning to have her own sunflower garden. She had to wait until spring when it was warm enough to plant. When they brought the big bag of seeds home from the garden store, Lonnie couldn't wait to get started. She imagined sunflowers everywhere, like at the farm. She imagined seeing sunflowers from her second-floor bedroom window, and sunflowers by the front gate, and sunflowers popping up around their swing set. So Lonnie put seeds everywhere. She sprinkled seeds around the rocks at the side of the house, poking them into the cracks with her finger. Then she ran down to scatter seeds in the corner of the backyard where the blackberries grew, so she could also see them growing from the family room. She put plenty of seeds along the front walkway and the driveway so the neighbors could enjoy the sunflowers too. In her excitement, Lonnie spilled seeds onto the sidewalk in the street, but she was in too big a hurry to stop and pick them up. After a while, her dad brought out some garden tools and said they could plant some in the garden. Lonnie's bedroom window looked out over the garden, so she wanted to put a lot of them there. Her dad showed her how to prepare the soil and get it loose and moist for the seeds, then carefully watered them and marked the places where the seeds were so they would remember where to look for the sprouts. There were still seeds left in the bag. The only place she hadn't put any was around the swing set, but her dad warned her that sunflowers wouldn't grow there. It was too shady and there wasn't good soil, only sand. So Lonnie took the last of the seeds with her as she walked to the front of the house. She was surprised to see that there were a lot of birds on the sidewalk and on the street until she remembered the seeds she spilled. The birds were eating them all up. She stood and watched for a few minutes, and when they all flew away, not one seed was left. Lonnie looked at the seeds left in her bag and then, with a big smile, poured them all out onto the sidewalk. She sat on the porch and watched as the birds came back and had a joyful seed feast. It was hard to wait for the flowers to grow. Lonnie checked on them every day. She and her dad watered the garden and celebrated when they saw the first green shoots. She noticed green shoots among the rocks too, but they were smaller. In a few months, Lonnie had a beautiful sunflower garden, but not every seed had grown into a beautiful sunflower. The flowers they planted in the garden were tall and strong. Lonnie could look at them from her bedroom window, but down in the corner of the yard, the seeds she planted near the blackberries didn't do so well. Her dad said blackberries took over the soil and blocked the sun. The sunflowers just didn't get much of a chance to get big and strong. Some of the seeds Lonnie had poked down between the rocks sprouted and reached toward the sun, but after a little while it was obvious they weren't strong. After a couple really hot summer days and then a windy rainstorm, the sunflowers among the rocks were finished. They didn't have room for deep roots or thick stems. But Lonnie wasn't discouraged. The sunflowers that did grow were bright and full of life. Some of the seeds she scattered along the front walk did grow well, if they landed in good soil and the birds didn't find them. The neighbors were happy to have a sunflower garden on the block and often stopped by to admire them. Her dad said they could harvest the seeds and plant again next year. Lonnie planned to have even more and share with the birds too. So, as we go back a little bit, this story was based on the parable of the sower, which is in Matthew 13 and also Mark and Luke, told by Jesus. So it's one of the parables that we also have an explanation for. So this was referring to the way people learn what is true. So we may be exposed to truth, but if our hearts are not open and we're not ready to learn, those experiences will just disappear and not make an impression on our life, like the seeds that were eaten by the birds. And if we hear something true and inspiring for us, we might get very excited and like the idea. But when life gets hard, we may forget the truth and it doesn't last in our hearts, like the tender plants that were growing in the rocky soil. We may try to live by truth, but gradually other things that are less important take over, like worry about money or being popular in school or wanting to be beautiful and famous. This is like the thorns choking out the plants. We may learn the truth with an open and loving heart and try to apply it in our life and keep it growing through many years. If we keep trying to understand, we will see it grow and change our life, like the plants in the good soil. So I want you, as we close this out, to close your eyes and imagine your heart as a garden filled with good, rich soil. It is soft and moist and ready to grow healthy plants. Imagine planting flowers or vegetables in the soil and seeing them grow strong and beautiful. As we search for understanding and keep our hearts and minds open, many things will grow and blossom in our lives. So that is it for this week, and I hope you join us again next week. Thank you. Bye.